Hello and welcome back to my channel. If you're new around here, my name is Bridget and I am a running coach and personal trainer at Dark Horse Run Coaching. Today I wanted to talk to you about something that I think is really important that I guess I didn't realize isn't intuitive. So I was on a walk with my husband the other day. We've been walking a lot with the pandemic situation and me being pregnant and whatnot. But anyways, as we were on our walk, we were chatting about his training. He's currently training for a half marathon and I'm coaching him. And I was just asking him, how it's going and if he's having any aches and pains and things like that. And he was telling me that he was experiencing some pain in his feet. And immediately, knowing that he's not overtraining or anything like that, we've been increasing his mileage pretty steadily. I immediately asked him, tell me about your shoes. I don't remember when you bought those shoes. When was the last time you replaced your shoes? All those kinds of questions. And he told me that he has had his shoes since last year, like over a year, and has logged over like 600 miles on them. Okay, and take a look at these shoes. It is out of control. Like these shoes, oh my goodness, should have been retired a long time ago. To say the least. Anyways, yeah, when he said that, I immediately was like, dude, you gotta get new shoes. You can't keep running in these. This is gonna cause you to get injured. Like you could get a stress fracture from this. And he was like, well, you're my coach. You're the one who's supposed to be telling me these things. And I said, well, you're supposed to know. Can't you see that there's like no tread left on your shoes? Anyways, it was like a silly little argument that we had of just like both of us not understanding the other person's perspective. And I think I can often be naive to the fact that people who aren't just like fully engrossed in the running world like I am don't intuitively know these things. So anyways, I figured I would make a video for you guys so that you wouldn't fall into the same troubling spot that my husband was with these ridiculously old running shoes that he was training in. So all that to say, let's talk about when it's appropriate to retire your running shoes. So generally speaking, running shoes are going to last you about 300 to 500 miles. And there's a range because there's a lot of different factors that come into play here. So if you have a shoe that is more of like a minimalistic shoe, like the stack is pretty low, like it's a flatter shoe, they're gonna last you closer to the 300. If you have something more like a Hoka, like what my husband was running in, it could have lasted him up to closer to the higher end of that range, like maybe 500 miles. Another thing to take into account is weight. If you are a smaller runner, your shoes are going to last longer because you're putting less impact on the cushioning. If you are a heavier runner, they're going to last you not quite as long. Some other things, if you're wearing your shoes for things other than running, if you wear them to go to Target or you wear them on your walks, that counts towards the wear and tear of the shoe. If you're just generally rough with your shoes, that's going to count towards the wear and tear of your shoes. So there's a lot of different factors at play here. But pretty much no shoe is going to last you more than 500 miles. So if you're in like a training mode, maybe 8 months, but even still, probably not even 8 months. Definitely not over a year. So these are things that you should be thinking about. And if you're like, how am I supposed to know how many miles I've logged in my shoes? I'm a big fan of the app Strava. So Strava is a free application. It's kind of like social media for runners. Basically, it imports data automatically from your Garmin or from your Apple Watch or whatever application or device you use to track your runs. And it pushes it to Strava. And you can set for each individual run, like I ran in this pair of shoes today, I ran in this pair of shoes today, and it will automatically track your mileage for each pair of shoes, which is awesome because if you're like me and you rotate a lot of shoes, it's hard to keep track of how many miles you've logged in each individual pair just on your own. You can totally do that. That is what people did before the days of Strava or other apps like that. You can totally just have a sheet of paper or like a Google Doc or whatever and write down each pair of shoes that you have and just track your mileage like that. But it is something that you should be keeping in mind. With the Strava application, you can also set notifications, which is pretty cool. So it can tell you and remind you like, hey, you've reached 300. Like, how are your feet feeling? Do you feel like the shoe is still springing back the way that it used to? Are you feeling aches and pains anywhere? Stuff like that. So you can just kind of be reminded like, oh, now is a good time to start evaluating if it's time to retire these shoes or not. And then you can set a notification for 500 miles and be like, okay, hard stop. Like, I need to get rid of these shoes. Definitely don't be like my husband and run like 600 miles in one pair of shoes to where there is almost a hole in the bottom. That's terrible for your feet. Some things to think about just in terms of like how your body is feeling. If you do not have a history of aches and pains and all of a sudden you're starting to experience pain in your feet or your legs or your hips or your back after you run, that could be a sign that your shoes should be retired. Or if you have been running in shoes for a while and they have not been giving you blisters, and then all of a sudden they're giving you blisters and you haven't like changed which socks you're wearing or anything like that, that could also be a sign that you need to retire those shoes. So just things to keep in mind when you're thinking about how long is this shoe gonna last me and is it time to let this one go. Now we all wanna get the most bang for our buck, so here are some ideas for how you can make your shoes last a little bit longer. If you rotate a couple pairs of shoes, I rotate a lot of pairs of shoes, but if you like to rotate maybe two types of shoes, so like if you have a higher cushion shoe for long runs and easy runs, and then like a flatter shoe that makes you feel faster and kind of springs you forward for speed workouts, track workouts, tempo runs, races, stuff like that. If you rotate those two pairs of shoes, or if you literally just buy two pairs of the exact same shoe, if you're more of a runner who does like easy mileage all the time, either way, if you're rotating shoes, it's gonna give each pair of shoes time to recover between runs. So like the foam can recover and like stretch back and expand, and the shoes can fully dry from the sweat before you run in them again. That's gonna make them last longer. Another thing to keep in mind is that putting your shoes in the dryer is not great for the shoe. So instead of putting a shoe in the dryer, you could, hand wash them, or I think you can still throw them in the washer on like a gentle cycle, but dry them with a towel and then stuff them with like newspaper or paper towels and just let them air dry. That will help your shoes to last longer because the heat of the dryer is just like, and the tumbling of the dryer is just not great for shoes. Speaking of heat, storing your shoes in a really hot place like a super hot garage or the trunk of your car is gonna like melt stuff and make things not work the way that they should. So, keep them in a relatively climate controlled place. That's gonna make your shoes last longer. Wear your running shoes only for running. This is not just for the longevity of your shoe, but also just for your body. Running shoes are designed for running. They're designed for forward movement. And if you're wearing them to things like HIIT workouts, which, might have the movement where your feet are going like this, doing like side to side type things, that's not what the shoe is designed to do. And so it's not going to perform the way that it should. Instead of that, have a pair of shoes that is specifically for your HIIT workouts or whatever other workouts you're doing, and have a pair of shoes that is specifically for running. Like I said earlier, if you are taking your running shoes and wearing them to work in the yard or wearing them to run errands, just buy yourself like a cheap pair of shoes at Goodwill or on Poshmark or wherever for those kinds of things, and don't waste your like $130, $200 running shoes on running errands at Target. You're not gonna get like a stretch factor from shopping at Target, but you very much could for running in a pair of shoes that's too old. And lastly, practicing good form. If you are working on your form with things like form drills and strength training and just being mindful of your running form, that's gonna help your shoe wear in a more proper pattern. If you run with bad form, it can wear your shoes in ways that it's not designed to wear your shoes, and can make them not last quite as long. So form is super important. There are lots of things and lots of exercises that you can do to improve your form. So that's super worth looking into. And along the lines of getting the most bang for your buck, let's talk about the second life for your running shoes. Now, for my husband's running shoes that were crazy worn, I really think the only acceptable thing for them to be now is yard shoes, because they're so worn out. But I mean, even just having them as yard shoes, or painting shoes, or shoes that you're like, I really don't care about what happens to these shoes. That's a great second life for your shoes. If they're less worn out, I think wearing them for walks or wearing them for errands and stuff then could be an acceptable use for them when you have officially retired them from running shoes. Anyways, hopefully this is helpful for you and can let you know when it's time to let a pair of shoes go. It might be sad because you have bonded with a pair of shoes, but please don't let yourself get injured after months of hard training just over sentimentality or frugality with a pair of shoes. So anyways, subscribe, check out my website, reach out to me if you're interested in coaching, and I will talk to you later.